Okay,
Yes, we can hear you.
awesome. Not sure what my computer was doing, but hello everyone, this is Sukhbir, and this was my first time mentoring with Magic as well. I've seen a couple of posts from Namrata when she started that inspired me to apply for the summer session as well. And I had the great pleasure of having Sheen Rena as my mentee. She's going to present her topic today, and we are just going to switch gears a little bit from apps to biology, and she's going to talk about gallstones that she did a very good job at reviewing, writing an article. So when we initially started, she wanted to write a review paper and actually publish it. So since we were on a constraint for summer, we decided to publish it on Medium, and I just submitted her article today to Medium. So fingers crossed, it will be out soon. And I just wanted to mention that all the images and everything that you'll see today is created by Sheen. So she learned how to use BioRender and create scientific illustrations and also write the article. So she did both of the jobs and she did them pretty well. You'll be really impressed by all her work that you see today. One fun fact about Sheen is that she is also a Bharatnatyam dancer, which is an Indian classical dance form. So she is juggling both of these activities together in the summer. And I'll let Sheen go from here. I hope you enjoy her presentation.
Hello, my name is Sheen Rana. I am in 12th grade at Milpitas High School and I live in California, USA. Next slide, please. So, you just heard my mentor speak. Her name is Sukhbir Kaur. She has a PhD in neuroscience and works at Advanced Cell Diagnostics as a field application scientist. She is from India and she currently lives in Texas. And her hobbies include singing, playing harmonium, cooking, and listening to music. Next slide, please. So my project was a gallstones review paper. So the reason I started this was because I wanted to learn more about this disease, since this disease is extremely common and like many people around us have it, but not many people actually know like what it like the details of it and how it actually works and how it forms. So that's why I decided to make this article. And so I learned how to take advantage of many online resources such as PubMed search and Google Scholar to make an article and find other to make a review paper because there's many other professional articles and experiments that are published over there, and we can take information from there and compile it into one article. And I also learned how to make scientific illustrations using BioRender. So we learned how to like make the images and how to make a cohesive diagram that is like very visually appealing and like understandable. Next slide, please. So let's start off with what gallstones are and like where they're located. So they're located in the gallbladder, which is like right side on the right side of our abdomen and like right under tucked underneath the liver. So it leads from the liver into the small intestine. So as you can see in the image, there are like many branches from the liver, which takes bile acids, and it leads them, stores and concentrates these bile, and leads them into the small intestine. So this bile is supposed to help the digestive system break down fats, and it is made out of cholesterol, bilirubin, and bile fats. But whenever there's an imbalance in these three substances, this can lead to the excess materials that are there to harden and form stones. So if there's any extra cholesterol, any extra bilirubin, or too less bile fats, then all of these extra substances will harden and compress into a stone, which are called gallstones. Next slide, please. So for the risk factors of gallstones, so many, one risk factor is definitely our diet and what we put into our body. So if we have a diet that is very like has very low sugar, has very low fiber, then this can very much lead to gallstones because it doesn't like let everything pass through the biliary system very smoothly. And diets high in cholesterol or refined carbohydrates and sugars also leads to gallstones because if you have high cholesterol, there's also going to be a very high cholesterol in your gallbladder, which can lead to the stones, as well as for the carbohydrates and sugars. This will lead to a higher insulin production, can also lead to a higher cholesterol production, which can lead to more risk. There are also secondary diseases that can lead to these stones, such as diabetes and liver cirrhosis. So, what liver cirrhosis is basically like your liver becomes like very fatty and swollen, and this presses against the gallbladder and leads to everything inside the gallbladder to be very compressed and hardened as well. So, this is usually caused by drinking a lot of alcohol and stuff like that. Next slide, please. Other risk factors include age and gender. So as you age, maybe there's something like gallbladder failure or other stuff like that. So that's why there's more risk for that. And your gender also really much like very much matters for it. Like so, females have a much higher risk for gallstones than males because of the sex hormones such as estrogen and progesterone, which lead to an increase of cholesterol and bilirubin. So other just having a very healthy environment and healthy lifestyle can very much help decrease your chances for gallstones. So having like being very physically inactive and having high obesity, like for most diseases like this can always increase the chance of like having a larger effect on you. And genetics is also a very big factor, although it is not the only factor. So this disease gallstones is multifactorial, so it goes from the environment as well as genetics. So the most people in the US who have gallstones are North Indians because their genetics has their genetics causes them to produce more cholesterol. So that's why many people in the US who have gallstones are North Indians. Next slide, please. So for the types of gallstones, even though we just think of gallstones as like, oh, there's stones in our body, there are actually many different types of gallstones. So the gallstones, remember how we said earlier that it can be caused because of a excess of cholesterol or bilirubin. So if the gallstone is made of like the stone's like dry weight is more than 70% cholesterol, then it's classified as a cholesterol stone. So these stones usually have a round to oval shape, even though mulberry shapes are quite common, and usually are a white to yellow color. Next slide, please. On the other end of the spectrum, there are pigment stones, which are made of mostly calcium bilirubinate, which are biopigments, which is why the stones are blackish in color. And so stones are classified as pigment stones if 40 to 60% of the stone is made of calcium bilirubinate, which means that there's less than 25 to 30% cholesterol. So these are usually very small and spherical in shape as well. Next slide, please. Mixed stones are basically when there is a lot of cholesterol and biopigments in the stone, and they're very mixed in together without any layers. So this is like a very defining factor, like there are no layers in between here. So these stones have varying shapes and varying colors. So you can be like yellowish white, yellowish brown, greenish brown, and black brown. Next slide, please. They can also be combination stones. So mixed stones and combination stones are two different classifications, not the same. So combination stones are when the bile and cholesterol are forming two separate layers. So like one inner layer may be of cholesterol and the outer layer of biopigments, or the other way around. But the difference between mixed stones and cholesterol stones are that mixed stones don't have any defined layers and they're all mixed in, and combination stones do have defined layers. So these stones usually are brownish or dark brown in color and have an oval to round shape. And the three of these stones, except for pigment stones, so the top three stones in the diagram, they all have like concentric and like radial cross sections. So if you chop the stone in half, the inside of it would look like spokes of a wheel. But that is not the case for pigment stones. But for all three of them, it will be like that. Next slide, please. So some symptoms for gallstones include abdominal pain and intolerance to fatty foods. So if you eat like something really fatty, you might have nausea or indigestion or something like that. So a very important point is that gallstones are not really classified as like gallstones disease unless there are symptoms that are being presented. if the gallstone, so many people might have gallstones in their gallbladder that are very like small and like less in number, and they might not show any, like they're asymptomatic, then they're not really classified as a disease because they don't really do much of an effect on our body. And like many people have small gallstones in there that don't do much of a problem. So for the diagnosis of gallstones, mostly the most common way of diagnosing is an ultrasonography, which is the image shown here. So these are very like sensitive, and they can show very clear images of like very small gallstones and like the number of gallstones and other stuff. And another form of diagnosis is abdominal computed tomography. So these are not as sensitive, and they cannot show as many of the like the smaller stones and stuff like that. But they are very good at showing other complications that the gallstones may be causing. So if their gallstones are very severe and they're showing like there's other problems that can be that can be this is when it's mostly used. So this is basically a CT scan of your abdomen. Next slide, please. So for treatment options, if the gallstones are very small and like not too many of them, then the doctor will most likely prescribe a medication that is like, these medications are very high in bile acid concentrations. So these will basically dissolve the stones and basically break them apart, and they will just go on their way. But these may take months to years for all the gallstones to be removed. So when the gallstones are much more severe, then a usually what will happen is a cholecystectomy, which is a gallbladder removal surgery, which is shown here in the image. So basically, the gallbladder will be just like cut off and removed by the surgeon, and all the bile that is being collected from the bile ducts in the liver will just go straight into the small intestine instead of being stored into the gallbladder. And so sometimes if surgery is not a possibility, another option is shockwave lithotripsy. So this is basically when they send a lot of shock waves towards your abdomen, and this breaks apart the stones using the waves and basically makes them shatter and fragment and go on. Next slide, please. So my magical experience, I loved working with Sukhbir. She's like such a sweet person and very we both are like very visually inclined people. So it was fun making these diagrams with her, and it was a very enjoyable experience. And I learned how to take advantage of Google Scholar and PubMed search to find other articles and make cohesive diagrams as well, as I said earlier. But something that I found really difficult was creating an article that like efficiently summarized information without being too wordy or like overwhelming the audience. Because as I was reading for my references, all the articles that were over there, it was like a lot of information and a lot of words. It was like kind of overwhelming for me. So I wanted to create an article that would be very concise and like cleared and to the point, and without having a lot of extra facts or details that would kind of make it more complicated. So that was a challenge for me. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's it. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Did you like BioRender?
Yes, I did actually. It was really fun to use. I loved how it like organized everything. It was very visually like very simple. So I like that.
So do you plan to use it in your future, like when you take some of the STEM or bio classes? Are you planning to use that?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Although it does cost money, so I'll have to earn a little bit money first.
Probably like some of the school have those during for that one that you don't have to pay. But great work,
Oh,
Sheen and
I'll
Sukhbir.
look into that. Thank you.
This is really nice work. Sheen, I wanted to ask you, was there something, as you were doing your research, was there something that really surprised you? I mean, you obviously got into it because you were interested in this particular organ, and you
Mhm.
must have done some research. What surprised you as part of this experience?
Something that really surprised me was how much more women are affected than males, like females are more affected than males because of their hormones producing it. And like I had no idea that was something that was like a possibility for gallstones, because I thought it was just like something about diet and like what you eat. but I didn't realize like the hormones had such a big part, because women are like 70% more than men, I think, something like a very much larger percentage.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Can I just add that my research was also based on diseases that are more common in women than men. So it happens a lot more than we hear about, just because how the original research has been done using either male animal or male subjects because they don't want to deal with hormones. So, the more you read, the more surprising it gets.
Thank you. Eliminating some of it is unfortunate.